When my son was a little boy, he used to hold my hand so tightly that sometimes I couldn't even move. He would look up at me with those innocent eyes and say, "Mom, I'll never leave you. Even when I grow up, I'll stay with you forever." And every time he said that, my heart would smile. Because to a mother, there's no greater comfort than hearing her child promise to stay close. I didn't know then that life changes, that people change, that love, no matter how deep, sometimes fades behind new priorities. Back then, I believed his words like they were sacred. He was my whole world. I raised him alone after his father passed away. It wasn't easy, but it was worth everything. We didn't have much, but we had each other. He was my reason to wake up every morning. When I cooked, I always saved the first piece of roti for him. When I stitched clothes for others to earn a little extra, I would always make sure he had something new for I'd. He was my pride, my joy, my little miracle. I remember the nights he would fall asleep beside me, holding my dupatta tightly in his small hand. He used to be scared of thunder, and whenever it rained, he would whisper, "Mom, promise me the storm will go away." And I would say, "It will, my son. Just close your eyes. I'm here." Years passed like pages, turning in a gentle book. He grew taller, stronger, more confident. I could see the man he was becoming, but in my heart, he was still my little boy who once hid behind me when strangers came to visit. When he finished his studies and got a good job, it felt like my prayers had finally been answered. He used to come home every evening, sit with me, and tell me about his day, his boss, his friends, his dreams. He would always bring me something small, a sweet, a flower, or sometimes just a smile. "Mom," he once said, "you've done enough for me. Now it's my turn to make you rest." I laughed, thinking how beautiful that sounded. He was kind, gentle, thoughtful, everything a mother could wish for. So when he told me he was getting married, I was happy, truly happy. Every mother dreams of seeing her son settled, with someone to share his life. I prayed for his happiness. I prayed that his wife would love him deeply, and maybe even love me too, like her own mother. When I met her for the first time, she was polite, quiet. She smiled softly and called me Mom. I took it as a good sign, but somewhere deep in my heart, I felt a small unease. I brushed it away, because love, I thought, can overcome anything. The night before his wedding, my son came to my room. He sat beside me, held my hand just like he used to when he was a child, and said, "Mom, I promise, nothing will change. Marriage won't take me away from you. You'll always be my first home." Those words, I can still hear them. They echoed in my heart for weeks after the wedding. At the time, I didn't know that promises can break without a sound. The wedding day was beautiful. The house was full of laughter, relatives, and music. I watched him sit beside his bride, both of them glowing with youth and excitement. He looked happy, and I was happy because he was. But as I watched them, a strange ache sat quietly in my chest. Maybe it was the realization that my little boy was no longer mine alone. He belonged to someone else now, and that's how life is meant to be. Still, I whispered a prayer. "Ya Allah, keep my son's heart soft. Don't let the world harden him." After the wedding, everything was new. The house, the routines, the faces. I gave them space. I wanted them to have their own moments, their privacy, their peace. But sometimes, in giving too much space, you create distance without meaning to. At first, it was little things. He would come home later than usual. Dinner times shifted. He spent more time on his phone, quietly smiling at messages I couldn't see. I didn't complain. I thought, he's newly married. He's adjusting. It's normal. Then slowly, our conversations grew shorter. When I'd ask, "Son, how was your day?" he'd reply, "Good, Mom, just tired." And that would be the end of it. I missed the way he used to talk, the laughter, the stories, the way he would ask for my advice even on small things. Now, he didn't ask. He didn't need to. And I told myself that's what motherhood is, raising someone strong enough not to need you anymore. But it still hurt. One evening, as I was setting the dinner table, I heard them talking in the next room. His wife said softly, "We should move to the city. It's closer to his office. It'll be better for us." And my son replied, "Let's see. I'll talk to Mom." I froze for a moment, my hands still holding the plates. I tried to listen without meaning to, but the words I caught that night stayed with me. Later, I asked him gently, "Son, you're thinking of moving?" He hesitated, then smiled. "Just thinking, Mom. Don't worry. I'll always visit. Always visit." 2 words that should have comforted me, but didn't, because I knew once you start saying visit, you've already begun leaving. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, remembering the boy who once refused to sleep without me by his side. Now he was planning a life miles away, and though I wanted to stop him, to say, "Don't go," I didn't, because love, real love, never cages anyone. So I prayed again. "Oh God, keep him happy, even if his happiness no longer includes me." In the weeks that followed, I began noticing the small silences between us. He still smiled, still called me Mom, but there was something different in his tone, distant, careful, almost polite. I didn't want politeness from my child. I wanted warmth, but I didn't ask for it. I just held my silence, like a mother does when her heart is breaking quietly. Sometimes, when he and his wife would go out together, I would wait by the window until their car disappeared, and then I'd whisper to myself, "He's happy. That's enough." But happiness can be heavy when it leaves you behind. Then one evening, something small, something ordinary, broke me in a way I didn't expect. It was raining, the kind of rain that reminded me of those nights when he was little and afraid of thunder. I made tea for all 3 of us. I placed the cups on the table, smiling, waiting for them to come. But when I called out, I heard his wife say from their room, "Tell Mom we'll have tea later." And he came out, looked at the tray, then at me, and said, "Mom, we're a bit busy. You go ahead." That small moment, it shouldn't have hurt as much as it did, but it did, because it wasn't about tea. It was about time. And I realized my time with him was slowly ending, like the last drop of rain sliding down a window pane. Asterisk after that rainy evening, something inside me began to change. It wasn't anger. Mothers rarely feel anger toward their children. It was more like a quiet ache that refused to fade. I kept telling myself it was only a phase. New marriage, new responsibilities, new routines. Everything takes time. But deep inside, I knew the warmth of our little world had begun to cool. Days turned into weeks. He still greeted me in the morning, still asked if I needed anything before leaving for work. But those words now sounded rehearsed, like part of a checklist. Gone were the long breakfasts when he would sit on the floor, dipping roti in curry, talking endlessly about his dreams. Now he ate in silence. Sometimes he didn't eat at all. I tried to hold on to the old rhythms. I'd cook his favorite dishes, chicken korma, biryani. Sometimes the simple dal chawal he loved When he was little, he would smile, take a bite, and say, "Nice, mommy." That was all. No stories, no laughter, just a polite thank you and a phone in his hand. His wife, Amina, was not unkind. She was simply distant. She didn't shout or disrespect me. She just built invisible walls. She had her own way of doing things, her own routines, her own choices. And slowly, I began to feel like a guest in my own home. I tried to join her sometimes, to help her cook or fold laundry, but she would smile and say, "It's okay, Mom, I'll manage." So I would step back, pretending not to mind, though each time I felt smaller. The house that once echoed with his laughter now stayed quiet for hours. I'd sit in the courtyard with my prayer beads, watching the sunlight fade across the walls, waiting for footsteps that often came late. One evening, they both came home looking serious. I served dinner as usual, but I could feel tension in the air. After a long silence, Amina spoke softly. "Mom, we've been thinking. Maybe it's time we move closer to the city. It's easier for his job." My heart skipped. I looked at my son, hoping he would smile and say, "Not yet, Mom." But he didn't. He only said, "It'll be good for us. Less travel, more time together. Us, together." The word "us" no longer included me. I tried to smile. "Yes, son, if it's good for you." But my voice trembled. He noticed, maybe, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he reached for Amina's hand under the table, as if to reassure her, not me. That night, after they went to bed, I sat alone, staring at the empty plates. I remembered the day he promised, "Marriage won't take me away." I whispered those words into the silence, like a prayer that had lost its way. The following weeks were filled with boxes and planning. They talked about apartments, furniture, and neighborhoods. I stayed quiet, helping them pack even when they didn't ask. I folded his clothes the way I always had, pressing my hands over each shirt like I was trying to keep a piece of him there. One morning, while packing, Amina said kindly, "Mom, you should also come with us for a few days. We'll set up the house together." Her tone was sweet, but I could feel it wasn't an invitation meant to last. I smiled and said, "No, no, you go. I'll come later." But we both knew later was just another word for never. The day they left, the house felt strangely hollow. I stood at the doorway, watching the car disappear down the lane, my hand raised in blessing. When the dust settled, silence filled every corner. The clock ticked louder than usual. Even the sparrows seemed to chirp less. For the first few days, he called every evening. "Mom, we reached safely. Mom, the new place is nice. Mom, don't worry." His voice sounded cheerful, and I clung to it like sunlight through a window. But slowly, the calls grew shorter. Then they became less frequent. Some days, none at all. I told myself he was busy, work, life, responsibilities. But deep down, I knew when someone truly wants to call, they always find time. After a month, he visited. It was a Friday afternoon. I had cooked everything he loved. When he entered, I could see how city life had changed him, his clothes, his manner. Even his smile felt heavier. He hugged me quickly, as if in a hurry. "Mom, you didn't have to make so much food," he said. I laughed softly. Mothers don't need a reason to cook for their sons. We sat for lunch. Amina scrolled through her phone while eating, barely looking up. He kept asking her if she liked the food. She nodded politely, but her eyes stayed elsewhere, and I sat there, smiling, pretending everything was fine, even as I realized how far away my son truly was. Though he sat right across from me after lunch, he said, "Mom, we can't stay long. We have a dinner with friends." I nodded. "Of course." He stood, kissed my forehead, and said, "We'll come next week." Next week never came. The visits became rare. When they did come, it was for a few minutes, a quick greeting, a polite conversation. Then back to the city. Sometimes he sent money through bank transfer, and though I never asked for it, I thanked him, because that was the only part of him still reaching out. Money can't replace presents, but mothers take what they can get. A few months later, I fell ill. Nothing serious, just weakness and fever. The doctor said it was age, that I needed rest and good food. I called him just to hear his voice. "Son, I've been feeling weak lately." He replied quickly, "Oh no, Mom. Take care, okay? I'll send some money for your medicine." That was all. He didn't say, "I'll come." When I hung up, I stared at the silent phone and whispered, "Your voice used to heal me. Now even your words feel distant." Neighbors came by sometimes, bringing soup or medicine. They would ask, "Has your son visited?" I would smile and say, "He's busy, but he calls every day." It was a lie, but a lie that protected his image and my heart. Every mother does that. We hide our pain behind excuses for our children, because the world can judge them. We never will. Months rolled on. Festivals came and went. I decorated the house each time, hoping they might surprise me, but the door never knocked. The lights glowed for no one. Sometimes I would take out his childhood toys, the little wooden car, the school medals, his old drawings. I'd hold them, smile, then put them back carefully, because memories are the only things that don't move away. One winter night, it rained again. The power went out, and the house fell into darkness. I lit a candle and sat by the window, watching the rain fall just like it used 2 years ago. And in that soft light, I saw the reflection of the boy he once was, standing beside me, holding my dupatta, whispering, "Mom, promise me the storm will go away." Tears rolled down my cheeks. I whispered back, "It already did, my son. You just didn't stay to see it." A week later, he called. His voice was hurried. "Mom, we're going abroad for a while. It's just for work." Amina got a good offer too. My hands went cold. "Abroad?" I repeated quietly. "Yes, Mom, just for a year, maybe two. Don't worry, I'll arrange everything for you here. Everything, except himself." I wanted to say, "You don't have to go," but the words stopped at my throat. Instead, I said, "I'm proud of you, son. Always do what's best for your future." He thanked me, and that night, after he hung up, I cried softly, not because he was leaving, but because he didn't hear the break in my voice. In the days that followed, I watched him pack through video calls. He showed me the apartment, the tickets, the luggage. I smiled and blessed him through the screen, even as my heart cracked in half. When he boarded the plane, he sent me one last message. "Mom, take care. I'll call once we land." He did call, a short call filled with noise and excitement. Then weeks passed in silence again. I learned to live with the quiet. I began counting time through prayer hours, not days. Sometimes I would walk to the corner shop, buy milk, chat with the shopkeeper just to hear another voice. The house had grown too silent, too neat, too still. At night, I would sit by the old window, looking at the stars, wondering which one carried my son's face. It's strange how the heart always knows when something is ending, even before words confirm it. I began to feel it long before it happened, that silent distance growing wider. like two shores drifting apart with the tide. But I kept pretending that love was still enough to bridge the miles. Every time the phone rang, I hoped it was him, and when it wasn't, I still smiled, because mothers learn to make peace with disappointment. Months passed since he left for abroad. He called sometimes, short calls, always filled with noise. "Mom, how are you?" "I'm fine, son. I'm busy with work." Amina sends her regards, and before I could say anything more, the line would disconnect. I used to keep the phone beside me all the time, even while cooking, afraid I might miss his call. Sometimes I would even dream of the ringtone, only to wake up to silence. The loneliness didn't come all at once. It came softly, like fog. You don't notice it until you can't see your own hands anymore. Then one day, a letter came, not from him, from the landlord. The house I had lived in for 30 years, the home where I raised my son, was being sold. I had 3 months to leave. I sat on the edge of the bed, the paper trembling in my hands. The walls around me suddenly felt smaller. Everything, the curtains, the furniture, even the framed photo of my son, looked unfamiliar, as if the house itself had already decided to let me go. I called him immediately. The call went to voicemail. I tried again. Finally, he answered, his voice cheerful. "Mom, I was just about to call you. How are you?" I hesitated. "Son, I got a notice. The house is being sold." He paused for a moment, then said, "Oh, okay. Don't worry, Mom. We'll sort it out." I felt a wave of relief. "You'll come." Mom, it's difficult right now, but I'll send someone. Maybe you can shift temporarily. We'll manage something. Temporarily. Someone. Words that replaced presence, like shadows pretending to be people. The next few weeks passed in confusion. I packed my belongings slowly, touching each thing one last time. Every corner of the house had his memories. His first school bag, his favorite cup, the small mark on the wall from when he learned to ride a bicycle inside the room. I couldn't throw anything away, so I didn't. I just folded them all into boxes, hoping he'd come to help. He didn't. Instead, one morning, a moving truck arrived, sent by him. The driver handed me a note. "Mom, please move to the apartment I've arranged. It's closer to the city. We'll come visit soon." It was signed with his name. Just his name. "No love, your son." I ran my fingers over the ink as if I could find warmth in it. There was none. The apartment was small. A single bedroom, a kitchen, and a tiny balcony that looked out onto the main road. It wasn't bad. It was just not home. Home, after all, is not walls or windows. It's the echoes that live inside them. The first night there, I sat by the window with a cup of tea, watching the headlights pass below. I imagined my son walking in, saying, "Mom, I missed you." But the door never opened. The city outside was alive. People laughing, cars honking, shops glowing. But my little room stayed still. The only sound was the clock ticking, reminding me of everything that wasn't happening. Weeks passed. I tried calling him again, but the time difference made it harder. Sometimes Amina would answer, "Mom, he's busy right now. He'll call you later." Later became tomorrow. Tomorrow became next week. Then, one day, her tone changed. There was no warmth, just irritation. "Mom, you should stop worrying so much. He's fine. You should rest. Rest." The word felt like another way of saying stop asking. Then came the day that broke me completely. It was his birthday. For years, I had made a special dessert for him, sheer kurma, just the way he liked, with extra almonds. Even after he married, I kept the tradition. That morning, I woke up early, made it just like always, and set the table for one. I called him, smiling. The call went unanswered. I tried again, then again. Finally, I opened my phone and saw his status. A photo of him and Amina at a restaurant, laughing, cake in front of them, candles glowing. The caption said, "Best birthday ever. Best birthday ever." Without me, I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I put the phone down, covered the dessert, and went to the window. Outside, the world was moving. Buses, children, street vendors, and yet my world had stopped completely. That night, I didn't eat. I sat in darkness, holding his childhood photo in my hands. It was taken on his 5th birthday, his face covered in cake, his tiny hands clapping in joy. He had looked up at me that day and said, "Mom, I'm the happiest boy in the world." And now, years later, he was still happy, just not with me. Days after that, I fell ill again. This time, it was worse. The doctor said I needed rest, maybe even someone to stay with me. I laughed softly. "There's no one." He looked at me kindly, but said nothing. Neighbors helped when they could. They brought soup, checked on me, sometimes sat for a while, but nights were long. The loneliness was heavier than the fever. I tried calling him again, whispering his name softly as the phone rang. He didn't answer. Instead, I heard the automated voice. "The number you are trying to reach is unavailable." Unavailable, a word that cuts deeper than silence. One evening, I received a message, not a call, just a short text. "Mom, we're moving to another country. Better opportunities. Don't worry, we'll keep in touch." That was it. No questions. No "how are you feeling?" Just an update, like an announcement. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, "May Allah bless you, my son. Always stay happy," and pressed send. It was the only blessing I had left to give. Weeks turned into months. The phone stayed quiet. I stopped expecting it to ring. Instead, I began to speak to him in my prayers. It was easier than waiting. Sometimes I'd imagine him calling, his voice warm again, saying, "Mom, I'm sorry." But when I opened my eyes, all I saw was the empty chair in front of me. Then one morning, as I was sweeping the floor, a neighbor came by with her phone in her hand. "Badgie," she said softly, "I saw something on social media. Is this your son?" My heart skipped. "What is it?" She turned the screen toward me. A photo of him and Amina standing in front of a new house abroad, smiling. The caption read, "Our new beginning." My hands trembled. I smiled weakly and said, "Mashallah, they look happy." But inside, something quietly broke for the last time, because I realized his new beginning didn't include me. That night, I didn't cry. I had no tears left. Instead, I sat on my prayer mat, whispering his name between verses, asking Allah to forgive him, not because he had done something wrong, but because he had forgotten. Forgetting isn't a sin, but it leaves scars deeper than betrayal. From that day, I stopped calling, stopped waiting, stopped expecting, because love that isn't returned begins to feel like begging. Instead, I started writing letters I never sent. Each night, I would write one, short, gentle words. "My dear son, I hope you're eating well. I made your favorite today. Do you still remember how you used to steal bites before dinner? I miss your laughter. I pray you're smiling wherever you are." I folded each letter neatly and kept them in a small box under my bed. It made me feel close to him, like he was still here somehow, just in another room. A year passed. The seasons changed outside my window. Summer to rain, rain to cold. But inside, everything stayed the same. Sometimes I would hear footsteps outside the door and think, he's here. But it was always someone else. Always not him. One afternoon, as I sat folding clothes, I found an old shirt of his, small, worn out, with his childhood smell still faintly there. I pressed it to my face and whispered, "You promised, my son. You promised marriage wouldn't change you." Then, for the first time in a long while, I let myself cry, not loudly, just softly, like a mother mourning a living child. That was the moment I truly understood. He hadn't stopped loving me. He had simply learned to live without me. And that is the quietest heartbreak of all. Time is a strange thing. It doesn't heal all wounds. It just teaches you how to live with them. Days turned into months. Months into years. My hair grew grayer. My steps slower. The world outside kept moving. Weddings, festivals, laughter. But my little room stayed still. I had learned to live with silence. At first, silence hurt. Now, it felt like an old companion. Every morning, I would wake up before dawn, pray, and make tea for one. The same cup, the same seat, the same quiet balcony overlooking the busy road. People below rushing to work, horns blaring, children laughing. All those sounds became my music of life. Sometimes I'd whisper to myself, "He must be waking up now. Maybe he's having breakfast." And then I'd smile softly, because somewhere in the world, my son was living the life I once prayed for him. That was enough. It had to be. One afternoon, as I sat mending an old shawl, I heard a knock at the door. I opened it to find the postman. He handed me a parcel. From abroad. My heart skipped. It had his name on it. I thanked the man, closed the door, and sat down with trembling hands. The parcel wasn't heavy. Inside was a silk scarf, light blue, my favorite color, and a small note. "Mom, saw this at the market and thought of you. Hope you're keeping well. Love, your son." Just those few lines. No long explanations. No apologies. But it was enough to make my eyes fill with tears, because after so long, he had remembered. I held the scarf close, as if it carried his scent. And in that moment, I didn't feel angry or sad, just grateful. Grateful that even from miles away, he still thought of me. Even if it was just for a moment in a market far from home. That small gesture became my peace. It was proof that love, even when forgotten, never truly dies. It just changes shape, like water finding a new path. After that, I started writing again, but not to him, to myself. I began keeping a diary, not of sadness, but of small joys. The scent of rain on dry earth, the neighbor's baby laughing, the first sip of hot chai on a winter morning. I wrote everything down. And as I wrote, I realized something simple, yet profound. Life doesn't stop giving, even when it takes something away. It always leaves little gifts, if only we have the heart to notice them. A few months later, a new family moved into the apartment next door. A young couple with a small daughter, maybe 6 years old. The little girl reminded me so much of my son at that age. Curious, talkative, full of light. She started visiting me almost every day after school. "Badgie," she'd say, her big eyes sparkling, "can I sit with you?" And soon, she began calling me grandmother. At first, I laughed. "I'm not your grandmother." But she just smiled. "You are now." That little girl brought back laughter into my room. Laughter I thought I had lost forever. Sometimes I'd braid her hair, tell her stories of my childhood, teach her prayers. She'd listen with such attention, as if every word was magic. and every time she called me grandmother, my heart healed a little more. One day, she asked, "Grandmother, where is your son?" The question hit softly but deep. I smiled and said, "He lives far away, in another country. Do you miss him?" She asked innocently. "Every day," I whispered, "but when I see you, I feel he's close." She didn't understand the full meaning, but she hugged me tightly anyway, and that small hug did what years of prayer couldn't. It made me feel whole again. As seasons passed, I noticed something changing inside me. The ache that once defined my days slowly became gentler. I no longer waited for calls or messages. If they came, I smiled. If they didn't, I prayed. Because love, I learned, is not about presence. It's about blessing someone even in their absence. Every time I prayed now, I didn't ask Allah to bring him back. I just asked for his happiness. That, I realized, was the truest form of a mother's love, unconditional, unbound by distance or time. Then one morning, something unexpected happened. My phone rang, an international number. I answered, heart trembling. "Mom," it was him. His voice, older, softer, but still my son's. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Then I said, "Son, how are you?" "I'm good, Mom," he said quietly. "I'm sorry I didn't call more often. Life just got busy." I smiled, though he couldn't see it. "It's okay. I understand." There was a long pause. Then he said, "Mom, I wanted to tell you something. Amina and I, we had a baby. A girl." My breath caught. "A girl." "Yes," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "We named her Sarah." Sarah. I closed my eyes, remembering. That was the name I had once wanted to give my daughter, if I ever had one. He remembered. "Mom," he continued, "I want you to meet her. I'll send you pictures, and maybe you can visit us soon." Tears blurred my vision. "I would love that, son." After the call ended, I sat quietly for a long time, not from sadness, but from peace, because after all these years, he had come back in his own way, not physically, but emotionally, in words, in remembrance, in the life he was now building. And that was enough. Weeks later, I received another parcel. Inside were baby photos, little Sarah smiling, wrapped in a soft blanket, and a letter. "Mom, every time I hold her, I think of you. I understand now everything you did, every sacrifice you made. Thank you for teaching me love that doesn't demand anything in return. I'm sorry for the years I lost, but I promise you, you're always in my heart." That letter healed everything. Oh, the silent nights, the unanswered calls, the years of waiting. They no longer hurt. Because he had remembered, because he had understood. From then on, we spoke regularly, short calls, but full of warmth. Sometimes he'd put little Sarah on the phone. She'd babble and giggle, and I'd laugh through my tears. "Say hi to grandmother," he'd tell her, and she'd lisp, "Hi, grandmother." Hearing that one word, grandmother, felt like the universe giving me back everything I had lost. As years passed, I grew older, but I was never alone again. The neighbor's little girl still visited. My son called often, and even on the quietest days, I felt surrounded by love, not the loud, needy kind, but the soft kind that fills the air like fragrance. Sometimes I sit by the window and watch the sunset, the same view, the same teacup. But now I don't see emptiness anymore. I see beauty, the way light fades gently, not abruptly, teaching me that endings can be peaceful too. Because maybe that's what life is, learning to let go without bitterness, and finding joy in what remains. Now, when I pray, I thank Allah for everything, the love, the pain, the lessons. I whisper, Ya Allah, thank you for teaching me that love isn't measured by presence, but by remembrance. Then I smile softly, wrapping that blue scarf around my shoulders, the one he sent from far away. It still smells faintly of him. And every night before I sleep, I look at the photo of little Sarah, her bright eyes and innocent smile. I whisper, may you always know how deeply you're loved, just like your father once was. Then I close my eyes in peace, knowing that love, true love, never disappears. It just continues, quietly, through generations. Because motherhood doesn't end when a child forgets. It ends when a mother stops loving. And that day never comes. Not evening comes early these days. The sun slips behind the buildings, faster than before, and the room fills with a calm golden light. I sit by the window, my cup of tea resting on the sill, the faint hum of life echoing outside, children playing, shopkeepers closing their shutters, the sound of distant prayer. There's a stillness that no longer feels lonely. It feels earned. I look at the framed photograph on my table, a picture my son sent last night. He's standing with his wife and little daughter, smiling widely, happiness glowing on all their faces. Behind them, I see a small detail that makes me laugh softly. The blue scarf I once wore, now draped over a chair in the background. He kept it. A small piece of me still lives in that home, far away, yet close enough for my heart to reach. I think back to the woman I used to be, the one who cried silently at night, waiting for a call that never came. That woman was broken, fragile, afraid of being forgotten. But the woman sitting here now, she's not broken. She's softer, yes, but strong in a quieter way. She's learned that love doesn't always look the way we imagine. Sometimes it comes back in whispers, not in grand gestures or apologies, but in small, gentle reminders. A letter, a scarf, a grandchild's voice saying, "Hi, grandmother." That's enough, more than enough. Once I thought happiness meant having everyone close, laughter echoing through the house, the smell of food, the sound of footsteps. Now I understand. Happiness can also mean peace. It can mean sitting alone, watching the sunset, and feeling gratitude instead of pain. It can mean forgiving silently, even when no one says sorry. It can mean remembering, without hurting. Sometimes people ask me, don't you wish you could go back and change things? And I always smile and say, no, because if I changed the pain, I would lose the lessons. Pain taught me patience. Silence taught me peace. Loneliness taught me the depth of love. And in the end, that's what motherhood truly is: giving, losing, and still loving anyway. Last week, I received another letter from my son. Inside were new photos of Sarah, now a little older, wearing her school uniform, her hair tied neatly in braids. She looked so much like her father when he was small. Along with the photos was a short note. "Mom, Sarah's school had a family day. She made a drawing of you, a lady with gray hair, wearing a blue scarf. She said, 'That's my grandmother.' I told her all about you, about how strong you are, about how you raised me alone. She said she wants to meet you one day. I promised her she will." When I read that line, tears slip down my cheeks. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of fulfillment. The kind that come when a long prayer finally finds its way home. Because even if life took him far, even if years were lost, my love had reached the next generation. Through him, through her. The night is quiet now. I close the window and place the letter carefully beside the others. My small room feels warmer than ever, filled not with people, but with memories that breathe like gentle light. I whisper softly, "Thank you, Allah, for everything, for the joy, the pain, and the journey." And in my heart, I hear a response, "You were never alone." Before I sleep, I sit once more on the edge of my bed and look at the stars through the window. I imagine my son looking at the same sky from another place, holding his daughter in his arms. Maybe, just maybe, he's thinking of me too. And that thought, that single, quiet thought, is enough to fill the emptiness inside me. Because motherhood doesn't end with distance. It doesn't fade with time. It doesn't die when children forget. It lives in every prayer, every tear, every heartbeat that still whispers a name. It lives in memories, in forgiveness, in love that expects nothing but gives everything. And so, as I close my eyes tonight, I finally understand what peace feels like. It's not loud. It's not bright. It's soft, like the sound of a door closing gently after a long goodbye. It's the quiet acceptance that some stories don't end with reunion. They end with understanding. And that, in itself, is enough. He promised marriage wouldn't change him. It did. But what he never knew was that his mother's love never changed either.